Hello and welcome back to the next episode of Speak. You are joining myself, Crystal Danbury, and the awesome Elisa Lynch as usual, but we have the awesome Christian Harris in the Speak seat. So we're going to hand over straight to you, Christian, for you to do an intro to you and then share what you want to talk about on Speak.
Cool. Well, thank you for having me, firstly, guys. I'm a listener and I was delighted to be the subject of a previous episode when I did some kind of controversial post on social media. And that's a segue into what we're going to talk about, which I hadn't planned, but it just came to me. So I'm Christian Harris. I am the founder of a business called Slip Safety Services. So we do what we say on the tin. We help people with reducing their slip and fall risks. But other than that, I host my own podcast called the Safety and Risk Success Podcast. I host safety roundtables every couple of weeks, and I do loads of other sort of broader safety and risk related content as well. And that's kind of a good intro into what I was keen to talk about, which is I'm doing this, although it took a lot of effort to get me to do it. I'm interested to hear your backstories about this, but you guys are doing it. You're putting yourselves out there and creating content and being active and, you know, getting involved and so on. And I guess for me, there's a little slight frustration, niggle as to why more people in our lovely world of safety aren't doing that. So I'd love to sort of dive into that and maybe talk about what we could do to encourage more people, help more people, kick them up the bum if we need to. But what we could do to just get more interactivity and community and stuff going online. I know there's a lot of good stuff going on in, you know, groups and IOSH and various other things, but you know, I'm thinking about some, particularly on LinkedIn where I'm really active. You know, it'd be great to see more people putting themselves out there on LinkedIn.
Nice. Well, I think you said something about like origin story for us as well. So should we just bring that to life? Because I don't know if we've ever spoken about it directly about what brought us to where we are. So great, really great question, actually, Christian. But it actually came from us being invited to take over another podcast for Women's International Day. And it was the very interesting Health and Safety podcast. And we were given the seat, and very bravely, the Colin, who runs the podcast, said, do you know what, guys, don't tell me what it's going to be about, you know, take the reins. And me and Elisa sort of disappeared and went on a call when we were like, oh God, a little bit icky about Women's International Day. I don't like the tokenism. And so we actually just decided to make the episode about our allergic reaction. And by the end of the podcast, you can go and listen to it. We kind of get to a point where we acknowledge representation is important, even if we feel uncomfortable, but there is obviously a big role for men to play. And then we had such a wicked time doing that podcast. We kind of just went offline and went, well, that's pretty cool. And I'd already tried to do my own podcast called the Why Should I Care podcast. And I'd done a couple of my own.
Yeah, which I listened to those first couple of episodes. Yeah, you did one about safety differently, I remember, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just realized what was missing was a really great person to bounce off of. And me and Elisa I just had such a wonderful time. I said, right, well, let's make this ours. And let's just go for it. And we did. So yeah, Elisa, from your side, did I miss anything?
You missed, there was a time lag in between where we had done Colin's podcast, it came out.
Yeah.
And then everyone was like, oh, I bet the two of you now are going to fuck off and do your own podcast together. I'm like, no, we're not. There's loads of safety podcasts out there. And literally 3 weeks later, I was like, oh my God, guys, big news. We've got a podcast.
Although you're not doing purely safety, are you? Yours is sort of more interesting than that, shall we say?
Yeah, it's a bit in the round. But I tell you, so I think one of the things it might feed into your question, Christian, is we did it. We I think grimaced and thought, oh, I hope that goes down okay. All of that imposter syndrome that you have when you put something out publicly. And Colin got back to us within, I think, 3 days and said it was the most downloaded podcast he'd ever had on his show.
There you go.
We suddenly were like, oh, okay, well, maybe this is a thing. And so I think one of the barriers to dive into your question is a huge amount of imposter syndrome. Why does my voice matter? Why does what I think matter over and above the thousands, tens of thousands of people doing this job? But also, I think a real fear. And Elisa, in the early days, you got this way worse than I did. A fear of total trolls online attacking the nuance of what you say, the mistakes that you made, the misquote. And I think that the tearing down. I mean, do you experience that, Christian? Do you experience the overly challenging, the difficult, the troll?
Yeah, it does happen occasionally, not a huge amount. If you consider, I mean, I'm probably sort of hyperactive, on LinkedIn in particular compared to other people. So I'm putting huge amounts out there. So the fact that it has happened to me is not surprising, but actually very, very little in terms of volume, I would say. So, and I kind of, I don't let that get to me really. I sort of feel as if it was somebody that I respected and they said something to me, then I'd probably take note of it. But most of the time when these things happen, it's random people who you've never heard of, and and they often don't have the context and so on. So yeah, I guess perhaps I've been a bit lucky that it hasn't really happened to me. And I, don't get me wrong, I try and say some not too controversial stuff, but I try and put out some fairly disruptive stuff to get people thinking differently.
Yeah.
So I am, slightly Marmite in certain ways.
Yeah.
So, perhaps I've just been a bit fortunate. It hasn't happened too much to me, but
yeah, like I had only like a handful of instances of it. But it's amazing how loud that can feel because obviously you really drill in on the negative stuff. And I think at the time it's probably maybe 2 years ago now. It probably wasn't trolling. It felt trolly, but it was really, who the fuck do you think you are? Like, and what do you know about this?
Yeah.
And it actually was somebody. It wasn't an anonymous account. It was somebody that was like a second connection. Again, we're on LinkedIn, and it was definitely in the kind of height of the, safety 1, safety 2, blah blah blah, all that shit. And I took it really personally, and which I shouldn't have, but it definitely tempered me a bit in when I kind of like, ugh. Whereas now I'm kind of like, if somebody came at me now, we'll say in relation to the podcast, I'll be like, okay, cool, no problem. Send me your podcast, I'll listen to it. Oh, you don't have one? Okay, fuck off.
Yeah.
Like, if you're not, it's what's that really long quote? The one, anyway, it's like, if you're not the man in the arena with Dustin.
Is it Benjamin Franklin?
Yes. Yeah. Basically, you're not in it doing it as well. You don't get to
cut me down.
Yeah. I think there's that balance, isn't there, between obviously listening to people's opinions, which are valid, and even if they're not doing that stuff, then they've got the right to give an opinion, but obviously in a respectful and a fair kind of balanced way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and there's definitely people who are better at that than others, where you can go, okay, I can really get into a conversation or a debate with this person and know that it won't go like knives out, and that I might come away with a different point of view or a different something else to reflect on. There are those people, when they pop up in my feed, I'm like, okay, I'm going to learn something for this. I don't agree with them, but I'm going to learn something. Then there's other names where you go, oh God, this is going to suck the life out of me, and I just am not engaging.
Yeah. So
the beautiful thing is you can do that, right? You don't have to. Like, one of my investors. So when I set my business up, it was in a cloud of some challenges about the previous place I was with, and certain things had happened, and there was potential for legal situations and so on and so forth, which we were happy we were on the right side of, but still it's not particularly nice. No. And then certain things were said, and anyway, one of my investors, who I'm also friends with and used to work for years ago, he said, if in doubt, say nout. And actually the great thing is you don't have to engage with all this stuff. You can just sort of let it lie and move on.
And I think, well, maybe that's like almost like point number one, which is one of the things that will hold people back is a complete fear of being trolled. But actually, there is some power in knowing that you don't have to engage with that. If you really feel passionate about putting something out there, then, just stand by it and know that you don't have to engage if something is not constructive. And so if that is a barrier for anybody right now and you're thinking, shouldn't I? Yes, you should.
Yes, you should.
And then just ignore the comments.
Turn the comments off.
Exactly.
No, you should turn the comments off, but because actually a lot of the value's in the comments and the conversations after and stuff, isn't it? But I mean, look, 99.999% of people are nice, right? I know it doesn't feel like that sometimes in the world, and that's one of the downsides of social media, that kind of the voice of the people who are more aggressive one way or the other gets amplified, and the sort of silent majority. And I think that's kind of who I'm speaking to at this point, really. There is this silent majority that actually I'd love to see not being so silent, because they've all got stories to tell and insights to share and value to bring. So yeah, let's get involved.
I think one of the things, especially talking about LinkedIn, because you were on about that earlier, if I go right back to when I wasn't really engaging with LinkedIn, because somebody said to me a little while ago, oh, you're an avid LinkedIner, and I was like, am I? And they're like, yes, you pop up everywhere. And I think I've gone from one space where I think I was worried about my siloed view of life. I only know what I've done and what I've seen others do, and that's quite a small world if you think about how much is out there and going on. And I think you can get distracted by how you can start looking inwards and think how little that is. But what it's that whole thing about marginal gains. If we all shared a little bit of what we were doing, we would all be way more informed. So I think sometimes people think it's what they want to share isn't big enough, or isn't supported by a paper or a theory or a definition.
There's a great book that I recommend to everybody, and it's called Key Person of Influence. So it's all about personal branding and becoming the go-to expert in your niche, however small that niche is. But one of the stories that this guy tells, Daniel Priestley, and whether he made this story up, I don't know, but it's a great story. He's on holiday in Bali, and he's chilling out by the pool with his friends, and they see this mountain, and they say to the hotel, oh, we'd love to go and hike up that mountain, and blah, blah, blah. And so they get up early in the morning, 2 in the morning or something, and hike miles and miles up the hill. And at the crack of dawn, they're on the peak of this mountain, and they're taking it all in and enjoying it. And he turns around and he sees in the distance a bigger mountain. And he's like, oh, how do I get up there? And the tour guide says to him, Daniel, you must enjoy the mountain you're on. And his point there is that we're all standing on this mountain of value. But when you're so close to it, when you're standing right on top of this mountain of value, you don't see it for what it is. And it's only when you move away and get that perspective and look at someone else's mountain that you think, oh, it looks really interesting or exciting or whatever it is. But as you said, Crystal, you've got your own experiences and insights that only you've done, and therefore you've got a huge amount to bring to the table that nobody else has, that perspective. So why not talk about it?
Yeah, amazing. I was thinking about the phrase that I hear quite often if I ever get feedback on something that I've posted or one of our podcasts. Some people say, and I don't know if you've heard this, I'm going to start posting. I'll find something to post about. I'm like, right, the minute you're searching for something to post about, you've already lost, right? Because the one thing that I have learned about LinkedIn posting anything like that is the minute you are trying to post something to do something specific, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
The minute you post something from your actual heart about what you're actually annoyed about or what you're actually passionate about, it goes ballistic. And some of the biggest things that I've ever posted have sometimes just been like a love heart above somebody else's incredible content. I don't need to put my own words over somebody else's great content. I just want to lift and share it. And the amount of people that say thank you, and I still think that is a really incredible way to engage online. But personally, one of the biggest things that I ever had a reaction on, this is to anybody that feels passionate, something's going on around them, and they have this big allergic reaction. It was results day, on the first results day post-pandemic. And all these kids were like, I didn't get to study. I've been shut in my bedroom. I didn't get the help I needed. And I just felt this massive outpour, and even all the kids in like the peripheral families to my family. And I posted to say, dear every student or every parent of a student, I went to school, got 6 C's, 4 D's. I was a cleaner and I worked in Domino's Pizza, and I just applied for everything in the paper, and now I'm here, right? And I just took one step at a time, and I did one job at a time. And each job I did, I just worked hard. And basically, grit and hard work will outperform anybody with a big certificate. That thing went bonkers.
Yeah.
It's still to this day the biggest. And I will not lie, I was laid in the bath being like, this is awful. And I hate that all these kids are stressing and all these parents are worried. If it comes from your heart and it's what you're truly passionate about, it will get engagement. It will. You just need to stop thinking, I need to go find something that other people are interested in. It's what you're interested in that you have to post about.
Yeah, yeah. Two points came out to me from that. One is that you're quite right. If you're thinking and overthinking, then you're probably not doing the right stuff. So, just if you're wanting to get started, don't even sort of try and think too much. Just document something. So, like, you've had a really good positive conversation with somebody, and you feel you've made a difference. Well, just talk about that. Or, you had an interesting observation about something, just talk about that. You don't have to be doing like these epic War and Peace, really thought through things. It's just like, what's your lived experience and your perspective on things, and that's, as you say, what people will resonate with. And then the other thing I would say is, I think this is like a blocker that people have as well, is that they don't want to be perceived as sort of an influencer, sort of like putting themselves in the spotlight. So what you want to think about is trying to be the spotlight, not be in the spotlight.
Yes.
So, for me, there's a few sort of key causes that I, am interested in. And so I'm putting a lot of stuff out about that, obviously like slips and falls being the main one. But I'm not sort of saying me. I'm saying this. And I'm trying to sort of build up my profile to shine the spotlight on these issues and these things that I'm interested in. So sharing, like you say, sharing someone else's cool stuff is a great way of doing that.
I like that. Be the spotlight, not necessarily in the spotlight. And there's definitely that element of almost the ick where you go like, oh God, it's the thing of what will people think, or people are going to think I've notions about myself, or who's she to be posting this? Do you know, that kind of thing? And that's all. And generally people don't give a shit. Just post, just like, and again, we're saying just post, and I suppose we're speaking to the people who want to and aren't, but also the people who we want them to be posting. Like, back to your point, Christian, of there's so much experience and knowledge out there, and there's really, it seems like there's just a handful in our sphere that do post, and while most of those are great, it will be great to get a lot more engagement. Like any of those LinkedIn groups, like you said, like tumbleweeds. They're just, it's just difficult to get people going. And I suppose there is that element of how do you get in groups, I suppose, get people feeling psychologically safe enough that they can start engaging and posting.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem is, sort of not the biggest, one of the biggest problems is that people might say, I'm inspired by this, I'm going to post something, and then they'll post, but they've sort of, because they haven't posted before, they've not got any followers or any traction, or so the sort of algorithm plays against them, and then they post and they kind of have this anticlimactic feeling of, nothing really happened there. And then that puts them off. So I think a part of it is, what I'd love people to do, for example, is be inspired by this conversation and start posting and just tag the three of us in, tag some other people in, because we'll, if someone tags me into a post, I'm always going to engage with it myself. And, the way these things work is if one of us comments on someone else's post, then that gets shown to some of our network. And, so we're probably going to have bigger networks than these people that are posting for the first time, and they can leverage off of that. And then you sort of, look at Louise Hosking, she's constantly tagging people in. She doesn't need to do that, but she does that to try and get the engagement and get the conversations going, and that works really well. And I think that choose those people wisely, obviously, because you don't want to be tagging people in who are not gonna support you, and you don't want to be pissing people off by doing that. But if you choose the right sorts of people, everyone that's been on your podcast, everyone that's been on my podcast, I'm sure would be cool with engaging with that sort of thing, and then that's how you sort of just start to build up those interactions.
Yeah, I love that. Two things came up for me. One was it was around perfection, this feeling of when I post something, it has to be perfect.
Oh, it has to be.
Right. And it's actually the complete bedrock of why Speak is unedited. And actually, this conversation is why Speak is unedited, because when we sat down and we kind of just had this organic conversation, didn't we, Elisa, about we want people to feel completely enabled by Speak, and to remove this feeling that everything you have to put out has to be perfect. I have to be able to edit. I have to be able to have perfect lighting. I have to have the perfect microphone. I have to spend the bajillions. And we said, actually, we want to get to a point that people are like, well, actually, I listen to these guys and they haven't got all of the tech. They don't do the editing. Actually, if I want to just post organically me, I can. And we were so excited when we saw the Safety Angels podcast come up and it said unedited. And we were like, yes, absolutely, go for it. And I think one of the statistics, is it the 98% of podcasts don't get past, is it like the 5th episode or something like that?
Yeah, it's something like that, yeah.
Right?
Really?
And celebration.
It'll be the same reason, won't it? It'll be because they pour their life into creating these 3 or 4 or 5 episodes, and then they don't get any traction, and then they give up. But actually, your career, Crystal, you just said, you start at the bottom and you build your way up through hard work and keeping doing it. Yeah.
Another thing for us with the unedited thing, which we were very clear on, is we did not want this to become a chore. So it was, what's the fucking easiest way we can do this? No editing. This is record, boom, upload, so that it's like we just didn't ever want it to become this thing that sucks the life out of us. So we're like, oh, here we go.
We thought, we used to be part of Project Millennium when it were, absolutely fantastic, especially through the pandemic, insane space where we met some incredible people. And we used to hear James often talk about the weeks and weeks, and even his wife would spend time editing the safety rebranded podcast.
Rebranded Safety,
That's it. And we just said, look, we don't want to I don't have any time. That would have been the barrier. So I think another call out to those listening is, actually, you don't need to have a massive setup. You don't need to soundproof your room. If you're just starting, just start. And it's okay to be unedited and make it easy. And as Elisa said, we record, we press stop, it uploads to we upload it and we walk away.
Yeah.
Because actually, one of the really big places we want to get to is where, when anyone posts, we start to really value what they're saying, not all of the gubbins and all the smoothness and all of the show-busy stuff that can be integrated into podcast. This is about what we are saying and who's in the speak seat. And we want that to become what people focus on. So I think just start, as you absolutely said, you'll start at the bottom with 1 listener, and then one day you'll wake up with 20, then you'll wake up with 200, and it's phenomenal. So just do it. Doesn't have to be perfect.
No, think of it like writing a book. So I'm guilty of this. So I've been writing my book for yonks, and I've invested a lot of time and effort into it. But actually, for all of that time and effort, how many books have I got? 0.
Yeah.
Because until it's finished, until it's actually done and out there, then
it's not a book.
It's not a book. Yeah. So done is better than perfect. You're better to put 10 things out there that are a 7 out of 10 than one thing that's a 10 out of 10. Especially on social media, because people don't, it doesn't matter how often you post, not all of your posts are going to be seen by everybody. So you have to just keep, it's a volume sort of game if you want to get known. And that sounds bad to say you want to get known, but you know what I mean. If you want to
if you want to
start,
get reach,
yeah, you want to get reach, yeah.
Yeah, I feel impressed and also called out with my. I think I've sent the start of 2 books to Elisa now, where she's given me great feedback and then been like, "So what are you doing?" I'm like, "Absolutely
nothing." How's the book going? Actually, at the weekend we were speak on tour this weekend past Ireland, Crystal Cave to Ireland. We're on the beer, and I was like,
"Nice.
How's the book coming?" And she was like, "Another round. I think Simon's calling me."
Well, I was massively procrastinating for ages about the book, because I feel as if I should write a book about slips and falls, right? Because obviously that's my main area, and I feel as if I kind of need to do that, because if you think of the word authority, then it's got the word author in it, right? So if you write a book, then it sort of gives you the sense of to write a book, a good book, you've got to actually know your subject really well, and therefore you've got to be an expert anyway. But it just gives you that kind of extra level of authority. But then I was like, is that book going to change the world? No. Should I not write something that could change the world? And then I've been, so I was going back and forth. And in the end, I decided I'm going to do my slip book, and then in a year or two's time, I'm going to do another book that is going to be a bit bigger and bolder and broader, and maybe might change the world in some way. But I've got to get the slip book done first.
Isn't it funny how you unpick yourself on this stuff?
Yeah.
Because I was thinking, my logic was this: I've got 2 books on the go, lol, which are not books because I haven't done them.
One 0 books, yeah. Hashtag 0 books.
I have 0 books.
Elisa, how many books have you got? 0 books as well?
I also have 0 books.
So we're the hashtag 0 books club. I love it.
Yeah. And I started to write one called Degrees, Trainees and Dominoes, and it was all about the many routes to success, and whether you have a degree, you're a trainee, or you work in Dominoes, which is where I worked, the route to success. And so I started to write this book, and I was like, oh, actually, do I have the credibility yet to be able to say that the route that I took, which was the Dominoes route, is making it? And so I sort of unpicked that. And then
you do.
I could write I could write this other thing over here, which is the true cost of harm piece, and about how I see safety differently. And then I started to write that, and I was just like, you can really attack yourself and ask. It's complete imposter syndrome in just one clothing.
It is imposter syndrome, because the other concept that I want to do something about is safety nomics. So I see a problem where we don't do a good enough job linking safety with business outcomes and business performance. And so I want to do like almost a manifesto of saying, look, you've got to this is how we can link these things together better. And if we do that, that unlocks funding and support and blah 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 blah.
That's what true cost of harm is, by the way. So there's definitely a calling for it. Yeah.
I'm going to flag it here. I am jealous of the word safety nomics.
And it's so good.
Disgusted that this is recording, because otherwise I'm feeling it and saying that.
I have put. There's another lesson in here in a sec, which I'll talk about, which is put your flag in the ground. But what was I going to say? But yes, on that, I've been one of the reasons I sort of was thinking, I don't know, is that imposter syndrome piece, because I think people perceive that I'm a safety professional, but I'm actually not. So I know a lot about my little tiny niche, but I don't, I've not got any safety qualifications or whatever. But I go and I host events and I talk to people about every broad topic under the sun around safety and risk. So I do know what I'm talking about a bit, but I haven't got that, piece of paper or whatever. So you do have this nagging thing. It's like, oh, well, perhaps I'm not qualified to talk about that.
Yeah, and then
I did think you were safety.
Yeah, no, I think people do. Yeah, I think people do. So because I'm a blagger.
But it's interesting because we have this conversation, we've had this, Elisa, on beer, over a cup of coffee, all the things. And Christian, I think it is so amazing that you're just like, I work in the safety space, but I'm not a safety professional, because it really matters, particularly to those that are safety professionals. And typically we have like sales. I won't point directly to who we were talking about the weekend.
There are 4 specifically that I'm like, you're fucking not. It's written on your bio, and you are not a safety professional.
So there are people that will just be in this space doing events and things like that, and then suddenly they'll change their bios to safety professionals.
Yeah.
And I think the thing is we want to meet people in the safety space that are not safety professionals, because we need great events coordinators, we need great hosts, we need great compares, because actually without, I think amazing, incredible personalities like Elisa, as an example, some safety can be quite dry. You need incredible personalities, and not all of them sit in the profession. So we need great enablers and great hosts. So I think it's incredible that you call that out, and it's really important. And it absolutely means that you can speak in this space, because you're not pretending to be something you're not. You're saying, I sit in this niche. This is my niche.
Yeah.
I know all the things in this niche. Let me share them. It's completely valid.
Yeah. No, I think that's true. And you're right as well about the dryness of the subject. And so I think trying to get a bit more personality is something I'd encourage people to try and do as well. And it doesn't have to be bombastic personality, but just kind of opinions and thoughts, and not just kind of all parroting the same stuff. Put yourself out there a bit in terms of, like I said earlier, a bit of Marmite. It's good.
Yeah, the echo chamber thing is actually why we got to the speak seat, wasn't it? And people that asked to come on. So it's not necessarily fans or anyone like that, but it's somebody that says, I've got a question and I really want to dig it up. And I think we loved it. We did a couple of them just because people reached out to say, can I come on? They're good questions. And we were like, this is much better than our echo chamber, because we're friends. We work in the same profession. It's natural that we are an echo chamber. So let's bring the left field in. And
it's like my sort of safety roundtables that I do every couple of weeks. When I started doing that, I was kind of hosting them and introducing a topic and my thoughts on a topic for 15 minutes or so, and then opening up to a discussion. So it wasn't just me talking, but I got to the point where I was kind of like, again, perhaps a bit of imposter syndrome, how many more topics can I sort of talk about? Maybe I should get some guests, and also it just brings a different perspective. So I now mostly do sort of live interviews with guests, and then we have the sort of open Q&A session. But it's really interesting with that, because we get 40 to 100 odd people on these things, and it's often the same people you see, but many of the people that are there all the time are just listening, and which is great, but you just wish they would unmute themselves and come join in a bit.
You think? Yeah,
it's but even that can be like, when we talk about like creating content or just contributing to the conversation, like you just, and putting yourself out, it can feel like such a push. And especially like on any of those webinars or anything like that. I remember it's actually only about it was earlier this year, and James Pomeroy was presenting on a webinar. I can't remember who it was for, but
how does he even have time to do that? Like, he seems to read about 1,000 books a week,
because he's
and then he's like posting about them, and he's one of my favorite posters on LinkedIn.
Yeah, same. But I had said, I kind of, at the start of this year, I set myself a little challenge of like, any webinar or group thing that I go on to, if they open it up to go, any questions, whatever, I have to say something. And it's just like, fuck, I really don't want to. And it was like there was like 3 minutes left. And it was like, so any other questions? And I was like, oh, Christ. So I just came off mute, and I was like, so hey, James, I just want to say, like, really thought that was cool. And I don't know what I said. Damien, one of my other buddies, was on the call, and I messaged him after going, I think I blacked out. I was like, I definitely swore. He goes, look, you did swear, but it was fine. It was grand. But just just do it. Just get involved in the conversation. Just push yourself.
And that's the start, I think, of just learning about, or not even learning, but I think it's breaking the seal on posting and being active, is your step one really is, when you're going into those environments, just take a pen and paper, not necessarily to make notes on what's being said, but when you get curious, when something isn't a full finished idea for you, grab it, write it down, and just pick one of them and give it a go. Just your job for October is to, if you're going on a webinar, write down a curious thought, something that wasn't finished, something that was triggered in your brain, just one thing once, see how great it is, and then post about it online. I asked a great question, this was the response. That's step one.
Yeah. And whoever hosts that webinar will love that, because actually, you know, you put all this time and effort into creating this content, these events and stuff, and then, you know, it's so gratifying when somebody after the event shares it and just says, "Oh, this was interesting, and I thought of this," and you know, that's and again, you're bound to get the person who put on that event is bound to engage with you and talk to you, and you know, it just gets that ball rolling.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think you were mentioning earlier about tagging. If you did that, tagged the host, tagged the event, that's almost like, and that's step one.
Yeah. Something else that's popping into my mind, like when you were talking about, you know, just trying to get people to create more content. And I know James McPherson talks about this a fair bit, because he's like, why are we not creating more content? As in, there's so many safety professionals who know their shit inside out. Like, if you're interested in it, create the content, post it, put it out there for businesses for free, kind of a thing. But definitely YouTube, TikTok, like I only play on LinkedIn. I do not TikTok, and I'm on YouTube for ASMR only. So like, but it's that thing of, yeah, what are your thoughts on YouTube, TikTok? Crystal, you're on TikTok, aren't you?
Yeah, I do leadership and coaching stuff on TikTok. I stopped doing it because I was thinking, yeah, I needed a break, actually. It was but yeah, it was just about people starting up this degrees, trainees, Domino's headspace, was just like, who is struggling, and just trying to defunk some ideas. Like, do you think you need a career plan? No, don't. If you have one, great, but if you don't worry. So it was just picking one problem at a time from questions from young people that I coach, picking it up and then reposting and answering it widely. Because I think where you can help others, you should. There's a million platforms now for you to be able to take one question from one person and share it with 10,000. Although I had a negative experience that I did post. So it was a 3 weekend when Lisa was this way and she met all of my girls. And we had a very good weekend. We'd been speaking about a particular topic around managing poor performance, difficult conversations, and why it was so tricky for some people. And as they left, I was like, I'm going to put some pointers online. These conversations are really difficult. Pen and paper. And I basically said, like, get a pen and paper, and this is how I would have a very difficult conversation. And I walked away and I came back and it got like 200,000 views, and every minute it was going up by 1,000 views. And in the end, I was like, nope. And I just took it down.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Take it back.
No, thank you. And so people even wrote to me to be like, excuse me, I saved this video because I need to have a difficult conversation. Can I have it back? I was like, absolutely not. Absolutely no, you can't. So
I could do with that. I hate difficult conversations.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I've got it in draft somewhere. I'll share it with you offline. But yeah, so I think actually I saw Elisa, you do the wind up, just in terms of those salient points and the takeaways. Firstly, for me, I think this has been a wicked conversation, and I love the best phrase out of the safety nomics is a fantastic word, but your thing about the fear of the spotlight being so on you, but make yourself the spotlight for other people and other events, is, I think, such an incredible place to start. Do it organically and about what you really care about, is the other one. And the call to action for me, which is whatever you are going to this month, write down your curious thought, land it in the room, and then share what you did in that room and the answer. That is your first step to content creation.
And tag the three of us in, and we'll jump in and get involved. Yeah.
Yes, amazing. So what are your takeaways, Christian? What are your thoughts as we wrap up?
My thoughts are #0bookclub. And
I'm putting that in the caption.
We collectively have no books.
And no, I think we do need to get those books done. Yeah, I just think just do something, and as I say, lean on us. We're here to, certainly me, because I've raised this point, but we're here to help, right? So we're here to encourage and assist. So even if you want to send me an email or a message and say, I was thinking about posting this, what do you think? And I'll even look at it before you post it if you want. But I don't think you should do that. I think you should just post it. But just reach out, and let's try and encourage each other along.
Yeah, definitely. Love that. Elisa?
Yeah, I second all of those things. And I suppose there was one thing actually, I don't know, was it Crystal, you had said of like, do I have credibility yet? And we just need to stop waiting for permission or feeling like we're qualified enough or that we've been doing it long enough or that we're old enough, because that won't ever come. Like it's never going to come. So just start putting it out there, and and to Kristen's point, tag us in.
Yes.
We'll be there.
Amazing.
Yeah, you whoever you are, whatever you've done, you're the only person that's lived your life and experienced what you've experienced. So you've got a unique perspective, and that perspective is going to be of value to other people. You might not feel that it will be, but it is. And it might not be to millions of people. It might just be to one or two people, but that's still worth doing, because if you can impact other people in a positive way, then why not do it?
Amazing. Well, thank you very much for sitting in the speak seat, Christian, and for your topic. I absolutely loved it. So, and thank you to everybody else that tuned in for this episode of Speak. Join us in a couple of weeks when we'll dig into something else. Bye.
See ya.